All right, well, welcome. Late night. Late night live.
Late night Thursday.
Yeah,
How's everyone doing?
I'm doing great.
We're live on Facebook. They could comment, maybe.
Let's see. It is June 30th. This is show number 15. Here we go.
15 shows.
15 shows. We've missed a few here and there. We've been traveling. I've been traveling. I went on a youth camp out last week. Bryce Canyon. It was fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's 4th of July weekend here.
One of my favorite holidays. I love the 4th of July. I love what it represents, I guess.
Yeah, it has its own little spirit about it, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Patriotism. Okay, so this is where we left off, kind of. Distribution of other suns with their attendant planets out space. So just the organization of the whole ecosystem to minerals and solar systems and how they all work together, he says. And that's kind of like we want to find our place in the cosmos, right? Isn't that the question that everyone asks? Is why am I here? Where am I from? Why am I here? And where am I going? It all has purpose. So let's see. Our first glance, therefore, shows us that the all-originating power must be in essence unity and in manifestation multiplicity. So
Manifestation multiplicity.
I like I like Witso's complexity. I like that word, and he frames it up like this as well in Irrational Theology. The complexities of the universe, and we all contribute to that. And it's many, just like nature has so many different types of flowers, so many different types of plants, so many different types of trees, so many different types of insects. It all adds for variety, and we contribute to that in the things that we do, and in our own unique way. So I just like that whole concept, and that's an eternal concept.
It is.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's one of my favorite things when you're talking about people, no matter who you are or who you're with, if you can look for and take the time and make the effort to look for the things that are the same or that are similar that you have in common, the differences become exciting and fun and magical and beautiful. So, and it's that same thing. There is a unity in all of us, and there's also that multiplicity or the complexity in it. That's the way I like to view people and connect with people. So I just that sentence makes me happy because it goes right along with one of my favorite concepts of life, I
Yeah.
guess.
And all life contributes to it, and from the least to the greatest. And the more we learn the principles that operate on the creative mental faculties, we can create some of our own original things that we bring into manifestation, and adding to that on one degree or another. And that gets exciting in and of itself. Even like being a business owner and growing a business that becomes more inclusive in other people and impacting their lives in a colorful way or multiplicity way is something of our own making. It might be in unity with the company that is the mother company, but if we're an offshoot of that, we still get to create that in our own little dynamic, in our own little way, unique way, which is there's a fulfilling emotional attachment that comes to that, and like a purpose-driven life. If there's a book called, that's the title of a book, a purpose-driven life. It can become really a driving force and mechanism in our life, a motivation and an inspiration to ourselves when you look at it from that standpoint, and knowing that whatever I build on that, that character that I build in discipline and refinement in my own mental faculties, creative faculties, is going to carry with me into the construction of the universe in the eternities, because we're eternal beings. And so that's an exciting way of looking at life and finding things to be grateful for all the time that have meaning behind them. Like some things, moth and rust corrupt and thieves break through and steal. There's some things that are temporary, but that perspective is eternal, and we're a part of it now. So I don't have to get to a finish line in this life to prepare me for greater things to come. Like the greater things to come are right now, at least they can be, based on our understanding and the development. So that's a cool thing, and it could be stressful too if we try to force ourselves to do things and get stressed out in that creative process. But mostly it's a very fulfilling and happy journey. It helps us to enjoy the journey on whatever level that might be and impact. So multiplicity, and that it manifests as life and beauty through the unerring adaptation of means to ends. That is, so far as its cosmic manifestation of ends goes. What we want to do is to carry this manifestation still further by operation from an individual standpoint. That's kind of what we were just talking about. To do this is precisely our place in the order of creation. But we must defer the question why we hold this place till later on. We don't. That's the question. Is that's how I used to be, because I didn't know the principles and the mental faculties. Wallace Wattles was my first introduction to that. When I was ready to receive it, I probably had been exposed to it before, but I was ready to receive it with that book. And then Bob Proctor helped me to foster and grow that. And there was something that reminded me of something that I don't think I brought to the surface before. To do this is precisely our place in the order of creation, but we must defer the question why. Oh yeah, so what I was going to say was I always felt like we'll get these lessons that we've been learning for the last 17 years after this life. There'll be some library that we go to or some classroom that teaches us how to create. And I just felt like that was something beyond the grave of this life, and that I needed to prove myself worthy by abstaining from certain things and being proactive with certain things. And there's nothing wrong with that. That was partially right, but it was incomplete. And the goal, and my goal, and I think your goal as well, is to help people get beyond where we used to be in that perspective. Because it's so limiting and it's frustrating, and it's like the waiting place when you could be experiencing it now. And it's like when you receive something of value, you want to share that with other people. And I think that's been, our life mission, is continuing on our own journey, but also helping other people to become aware of it.
Yeah. It's spending years in school and learning a lot of things and expanding your mind and thinking that you know something, and then you start a practicum or an internship and you realize you don't really know much at all, and you put it into practice and you get to create using the knowledge and also using your own powers, your own individuality, your own, it's like going from head knowledge to heart knowledge. And I don't think that'll stop. I think that to a certain point in this life, yeah, we can begin to act on this and to manifest and to create. And then I think, in the next realm of life, our minds will be blown away with how little we knew and how little we thought we knew, and how much left is, to be offered and to be applied and to be learned. that makes me excited, because every element of learning, it almost feels like starting over. Like I remember the first day, or the first little bit of my practicum and my internship, I was like, I don't know why people think I can do this. Like I've learned I've learned in a book, but I don't know how to do it. And then all of a sudden you're doing it, and you feel like you're starting over. You feel like you've gone backward, but you haven't. And then it expands even more. And that's with application of everything that we do. If you're learning, exercise, or if you're learning, when you're learning about nutrition and you start changing the way you eat, it feels yucky at first and it tastes yucky and it might even make you tired. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh my goodness, what is this energy that I have? So it's just the way it is. So I don't know. I love the fact that what I think I know is really a drop in the bucket of what there still is left to know. And that will never end. And that's just really cool. So
Yeah, how they
there's
find.
no arrived in this life.
Yeah, I like there's how they're always finding different, like they just found a whole library of things from like over 1,000 years ago. I can't remember where it was, but like it's a complete library of books from ancient civilization that was buried. And they find like the Dead Sea Scrolls and things like that, and one of those contains some words of Moses. And when Moses went through his experience that he did, that we have some of in the Bible, the burning bush, and where he was able to converse with God, it says, as a man speaketh with another. But in his experience, in this other writings said, after his experience with God, God showed him his creations, not all of them, but he showed him, he was able to peek behind the curtain. And he said, at this point, I realized that I didn't know that man was nothing compared to God, because of his finite perspective, finite thinking, which is very limited when we compare it to, the supreme. And so, like you were just saying, there's an excitement about what's on the other side. And sometimes that creates like little thoughts for me. I don't spend a lot of time on them, but it's kind of like Pandora's box. What do we eat over there? And can we get overweight? And what's our houses like? Do we live in houses, or and it says as above, so below. So I'd imagine it's gonna be a lot like it is now. But that's just really, it's that Pandora's box. When we don't know, the mind kind of wants to know, and but I don't spend a lot of time on that. But it is a curiosity. There's a lot of gaps that have been filled in because of the principles, and understanding the principles and realizing those are immutable principles. Doesn't matter what state or where we're at, those principles will still be intact. So that kind of does fill in some of the unknowns that become more known and then revealed to us, and then that confirming spirit that confirms them to us when they're true. So yeah, that's a fun thing to think about, but also taking advantage of the opportunity to learn the order of creation and our part in it. Along with Whitso, he says, so God has a dependency on us. He says this in the book Irrational Theology. He says, yeah, his dependency on us is infinitesimal compared to our dependency on God, because we don't even breathe ourselves, right? We don't even divide our cells. That was done through the supreme, of God, and the power and order that is understood there. However, we paint, we construct, we sew, and we knit, and we hammer things, and we make these cool things. And so in order to create that complexity, God depends on us to continue the complexity that he enjoys. And so he says it's a very ennobling thought to know that we do matter, and that our uniqueness is appreciated and loved by God and is dependent. So that's a cool thought, rather than being considered, as nothing. One
more metaphor thought, just because I thought it just popped into my mind, and I think it's cool. It's kind of like when you buy a puzzle, and you see the picture on the outside, and you think you know what you have, and you're all excited about it, and then you go home and you dump out all the pieces, and all the pieces are there. You have all the pieces, And now you get to figure out how to put them together. And it, again, it's like you learn something and you're like, but what do I do with it? So it's not like, I don't, anyway, I don't think it's like you start from nothing, because we're acquiring a lot as we're, going through life. We have all this knowledge and experiential understanding that we gain. And then maybe it's like puzzles in a box, and then we dump it out and figure out what to do with it from that point. And then
Yeah.
what's next? Anyway, it just, I think
No,
it's a cool analogy.
I think that's good. And somebody must need to hear that on this podcast, because I felt to like, not ad lib, to expand on that. And it goes right along with what you were just saying, what I felt like get that point across. There isn't anybody that doesn't matter. There isn't
Right.
anybody that doesn't have this ability. And if you're listening and you feel like, except for me, right? Like, I don't have that capacity. I'm not good enough or whatever, right? Like Marianne Williamson says, it's our light that we're afraid of, not our darkness. We're always thinking little of ourselves. And the capacity is in us. If we feel like that, it's only ignorance. Bob Proctor said that, I think, in the movie The Secret. The number one problem in the world is ignorance. The number one problem in our own world, in our own creations, is ignorance. And the more we learn the principles, the more we embrace our ability to act out those principles. It's just a behavior. And that behavior is based on things that we come to understand. So it's the same. I mean, you could say it on a basic level, but it's way more profound than the basic levels of, well, if I want to be healthy, then I eat healthy foods. Well, what if I don't know what healthy foods are? Then I'm susceptible to the false advertisement and the mercy of the food and supplement manufacturers, who may be dishonest, right? But the more I learn about ingredients and where they come from and what they do and how they work, the more I'm empowered to make more healthy choices based on my own knowledge that I didn't have before. And so that's a simplified version, like you're saying with the puzzle piece. We have all the pieces.
Mhm.
It's just that we're ignorant to them. It's blindsiding us, but that doesn't have to be. And that's what this podcast is for as well, is helping people to become aware of.
Yeah, I've had several
Wow.
several people approach me, people that have listened to the podcast and get excited, and then they come to me later and they're like, I don't know why I don't get it. I don't get it. I must suck at mindset, so I'll never have all the things that I want. And it breaks my heart, because that's not what this podcast is about. It's not about a separation of some people can, some people can't. It's in all of us. We have, again, like, you have all these pieces of the puzzle, and every time you learn something, like head knowledge wise, it's like adding another piece to the puzzle. But at some point, you've got to attempt to put the puzzle together. And for some people, it for some reason seems like it's easier for them to put a puzzle together. Maybe it's because they've had more practice, maybe because they put other puzzles together before. And for some of us, I like can't stand puzzles. I don't like them. And so I haven't actually given the effort to put a puzzle together, and eventually, if I want the end result, I've got to start putting those pieces together. So it might be difficult. I might feel less than somebody who is a master puzzle putter together, but if I want it, I have all the pieces, like we've said, and I've got to be willing to put the pieces together. And I've got to be willing to get some of those pieces wrong and have to start over a few times. And yes, this cycle of growth is fantastic.
Yeah, because we're unconsciously incompetent, right? When we start learning about these principles, just because you listen to the podcast, and and some people listen passively, like they're driving down the road and they get distracted, and so they're on a thought trip about something else. When we said some essential things that went along with what put them on the thought trap, or thought, yeah, it is a thought trap, thought trip earlier, and so they miss that essential stuff. And so the reading and gain and gleaning with all your heart, might, mind, and strength, like that's your passion. Like you would give everything to spend time to be able to read and glean more of this, the definitions of these principles. Because every time we go on a journey, so let's say we're listening to the podcast, we want to start manifesting our goals. It doesn't matter who you are. Whenever you're on a journey that you haven't actually accomplished already, so you've never built a puzzle before, you're going to hit deception. It's part of the process. It's when you become aware that you're consciously incompetent. But because we don't know the process and the cycle of growth, our energy gets low and our activity gets low. Our action and our energy gets low. Our competency is still low. So this deception's a really tough place. You've got to start being on your own journey and really hungering and thirsting after the words of the principles. So hungering and thirsting after the principles of righteousness, which is every principle that there is, health, math, any principle is righteousness. So, but most people won't do that. They're going to listen to it, get just enough to start to think that they can manifest things, but they're incomplete in their conscious incompetence. And so it's not until we gain that information that we start to get the consciously competent. This is ignorance on fire over here. This is knowledge on fire over here. And you actually accomplish it. You build the puzzle, whatever that puzzle might be. And there is no way, nobody can escape this. There is no way of escaping this piece. And there's some intellectual things that we have to understand. If we want this bad enough and we'll just do whatever it takes, then in that whatever it takes, there's a learning process and a learning curve that we commit to understanding. And we eventually get to that conscious competence because we're willing to do whatever it takes. And learning the skills and the understanding to get here is part of that willpower that drives people through. But if the willpower isn't there to get you to this, the deception is going to take you out every time. And it's easy to start over with something new, or it's the same thing over and over, and never getting past this conscious incompetence.
What that is, the deception is when your tangles in your subconscious, your core beliefs are off. And then they start to fight these new ideas and they start to confuse you, like, again, like, oh, I have all the pieces, now I can live the life I want. And then you actually start and you're like, oh wait, I suck at this. That's one example of deception. You don't suck at it, you just haven't given it the practice. Plus you have to unlearn just as much as you learn, sometimes more than you learn at first. And that's why the deception and the transformation stays low for a while, right? It doesn't feel good for a while to be in deception. And that's why remembering where it is that you want to go can be really helpful. And it's also why support can be really helpful to help you like notice what those deceptive core beliefs are, because then it's transformation. The transformation part is after you've unlearned things, it's putting those pieces back together in the correct way so that you have new core beliefs that actually match your new identity and match the inception that you had on the other side. So it's a lot of work. So learning also includes unlearning, I think, is the moral of that.
There's a Zoom that I did this morning, and the thoughts that were coming to me was, so I get to an understanding that, with a perfect understanding, which actions will get you the results you are wanting. So there's a point in study and searching out and gleaning and immersing yourself to where you can start to learn what understanding do I have to get over here. And some people have very minimal understanding in their pursuit of getting over here, and that's all they ever have is a minimal understanding, so they never make it. But the key to making it over here is getting a perfect understanding of what actions are going to give me what results I'm wanting. And so right here I put right actions. Wallace Wattles calls them efficient actions. In the Science of Getting Rich, there's a whole chapter on efficient actions. When you do efficient actions, you'll always get here. There's no way you couldn't, because it's cause and effect. Just like when a farmer plants, they know what actions are going to yield the crop before the crop is even produced. And they do it year after year. So keep the next step is keep developing the habit to do it consistently. So once I get those actions and I understand what they are, the next thing is having the willpower and the discipline to develop those new actions as a habit, because they're not developed as a habit yet. And that's another thing that takes people out right here. They might have the right mentors and the right actions. It's just that their energy's low and their actions are low because it's taking longer. They can't really, they lost interest or whatever. And so since it hasn't become a habit that they've not developed, then produce the result because they're not doing it consistently. So we got to get to where we're doing those new actions consistently, and that is unlearning some things. So I use this as an example. I did a 30-day challenge, and I threw that in the Mechanic to Millionaire group as well with the Sylvan method. I really like that meditation, walkthrough meditation, because it doesn't talk too much. It doesn't get in the way of me and my vision. It's getting my mind into the state to bring my vision into it. And it, like the 10 and 10, which a lot of you know about with Matthew Ferry, there's a lot of talking in there. And a lot of that talking throws me off my groove when I'm visualizing and living, doing the law of assumption. This one doesn't do that. So I want to get this to where I'm doing it in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. Now, going into this, I've done things where I'm going to go 30 days without missing morning, afternoon, and evening. I did that with scroll number 2 from Og Mandino's The Greatest Salesman in the World. It was the marketplace with love, going into the marketplace with love. And there's about 10 paragraphs, and I read them every day, 3 times a day. Now, with that, I wanted to do it to where if I missed one reading, I would start over at day 1 again.
How many days did it take you to do 30 days?
It took me a long time. It changed me because I did it so long, and I usually hit it, but I would if I missed one, I had to start over. And so it took me a long time.
Like on 28 or 29, and then you missed your noon one or something, and you're laying in your bed, and you're like, dang it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So
what's interesting about this picture going along with that, as I'm looking at the picture here, he's wearing a cape on Identity's side. And I think a lot of times when we see someone on the other side, or where we think they're on the other side, we envision them wearing a cape, and we think, oh, they leaped over there with a single bound, or they flew through the air with the greatest of ease. But if you look at the picture, no, they didn't. They fell, and then they climbed to get there to earn that cape. It wasn't a superpower. And that, I think, is a lot of where that deception comes from. It's like, oh, shoot, if I fell, I don't have, anyway. Yeah. I just was noticing that. And as you're talking about how long it took you to do the 30 days of the Og Mandino thing, you didn't leap over there with the greatest of ease. You did, you're sliding, you're falling, and you're climbing.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, and a lot of people have a false expectation, or erroneous expectation. It's a lot harder than most people think, and they think it's going to be easy to get over here. So if I can use this as an example, when I started this 30-day challenge, I know how difficult that is to do 3 times a day without missing. And now I'm not going to go back to day 1. I'm just committed till the end of July to do this 3 times a day. Will I go beyond the 30 days? Yeah, I probably will, because I want to develop this as a lifelong habit with this particular meditation. But let's take that out of it. I knew when I went in, AM, done deal. I already have the morning time set up to where that's already in place. I've already developed the habit of having an hour or 2 hours in the morning where that's me time. And I'm going to devote that to my personal development, exercising, whatever. And so whether I do it or not, I still have developed the habit that hour is there for me in the morning. So I knew going into this, I'm going to be able to do that one, but this is going to be tough. I know I'm going to hit some deception. I just know from experience. I'm not setting myself up for failure. I just know from experience, and that deception will set in for me because this is not a habit I've developed to do that in the afternoon and in the evening. And I've already missed some days. I've already missed where I didn't do it in the afternoon, or I missed when I did it in the evening. So it's not developed as a habit yet. Now let me take my bike riding. My bike riding's a habit now. I've been doing it well for over 100 days, and I've missed a few days here and there, but this morning I did not feel like going bike riding. I didn't feel like it, but I did it anyways. Why? Because it's a habit for me now. I've formed the habit to go on my bike ride in the morning, whether I feel like it or not. I still have to say, okay, I'm going to do it, but it's so easy. Where right now, doing this in the evening is not, I'm in deception phase, and I missed last night. So I woke up and did it this morning. I did my noon one today. So I just want also people to understand there's an intellectual understanding that you have to know, like when people say, well, they're a brilliant mind when it comes to business. Well, they're a brilliant mind because they devoted the time to gleaning and immersing what are the skills, what are the actions that are efficient with this particular thing that I'm going to do and pursue. Now, along with that comes getting those actions into a habit. And that's where discipline, and no matter what it takes, I'm going to develop the habit to do these actions. So even though I fell, see, everyone hits the deception phase. Not everyone handles it the same. Not everyone handles this the same. Most people, if they didn't do it last night, could rationalize the next morning, yeah, I'm just not going to do it. It's not that important to me. You know, nobody knew that I didn't do it. And it really doesn't seem to make much difference if I do it anyways. And so they just rationalize and they don't do it the next morning. I've already made the decision. I'm going to do this 3 times a day. That doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect. It just means I'm going to handle the deception phase that way. And so a lot of people, when it comes to manifestation, they may try the manifestation, but they don't understand intellectually there's more that they need to understand about efficient actions, which is doing your assumption every morning, doing that hour of power, eyes closed actions. But they stop doing their eyes closed action, therefore they don't get over here, therefore they say, I can't do it. There's really a lot that has to go into this rather than just saying, I'm going to do it and I'm going to go do it no matter what. There's some intellectual understanding and reasoning capacity you have to have within yourself about all of this. And it goes down even further, you know, like, so in our business, they say talk to 2 new people a day. Well, I'm an introvert. I didn't talk to 2 new people before I started this every day. That was the last thing I wanted to do, was talk to 2 new people. 1, because I'm an introvert, and 2, I had chronic fatigue. I didn't even have the mental energy to talk to people. So those were 2 things that were against me. They were definitely not habitual actions. But when I got into the business that we've been doing for 17 years now, I learned, hey, you got to talk to 2 or more people a day. And I wanted this over here so bad that I developed the habits, got through the deception phase, learned all the right actions, and developed to where I talked to 2 or more people a day, in spite of it being against me in the beginning. This being against me, I'm holding this out for people who are hitting that deception phase for whatever it is their right actions are and whatever bad habits they have that negate those efficient actions. And so when they say it doesn't work for me, no, you're just not getting through this phase with all of the things that it demands of you to do. It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. But is it worth it? Yeah. What's the alternative? Continue to live the miserable, status quo lifestyle that you're living now. And that doesn't please us because we're not making progress.
Yeah. I know for me, I found that it was helpful for me to go to conferences and retreats and trainings to learn this kind of stuff. And it was a consistent 5 years, I think, where I was going to lots of things from the beginning of that experience I had in Belize when I, did the snot bubble thing. I felt the difference and I knew it was real. But after that, it took me 5 years and I would go and I knew it was where I needed to be. And I knew because it felt good when I was there. And I would also fall so hard. I would beat myself up really hard sometimes. Like they'd show a video about Nick Vujicic, I think is how you say his last name, the one with no arms, no legs. And it's supposed to be this inspirational video of like, he can climb Mount Everest and so can you, like he can, and I would sit there and for the longest time, I would go to these things and I would still in deception tell myself I can't. And I'm like, well, that just tells me that I suck even more because I have arms and legs and I still can't do it. And I remember feeling that and getting so upset. And I remember one time the trainer looked at me and he's like, what are you thinking right now? And I told him, he's like, I could tell, I can see exactly what's going on. How long do you want to feel like that? And I was like, I'm kind of sick of it the way it feels right now. And so by the end of the training, and I wish I remembered every detail, but I finally was at the point where he's right. I'm tired of feeling like this. I've been coming to these. I know what happens. I know the concepts. I can answer the questions. I've had experiences where I have felt the difference, and I'm still here. Do I want to still be here? And then it just came clear to me, like all of the things that I've been afraid to do, all of the Mount Everest that are in front of me that I'm sitting at the bottom saying I can't climb because I can't, like, I've got to start doing it. I've got to start doing those things. And I remember making that choice at the time, that now's the time. I'm done feeling like this. And now I'm going to start putting these things into action. And it didn't take very long at that point. I was in a little group, and we met together for, I don't remember how long. It was a few months. But from the beginning to the end, everyone in the group was like, what did you do? I was in the same group. And it was like, I just finally decided I was done feeling like I can't do it. And I started doing it. And anyway, it might take 5 years of deception. It might take 5 years of just, believing those core beliefs that make you feel like you don't matter and like you can't. And that's okay. Like, it takes time. And what matters is if you keep showing up for yourself, you keep immersing yourself, you keep going until you realize that it's time to move, I guess.
Yeah. That didn't happen on by itself.
No.
And you just said it. And I was gonna interject. I mean, because you did the work, like you were gone all the time. It's like, yeah, go, because you allowed me to do that, and I was gone into all those events and trainings and where I'd glean that stuff and immerse myself within it. And yeah, it didn't happen overnight for you, but now you're living your life by design. And you talked about that in just recent podcasts, how you've set up your internship. And so you're able to practice that. We're still learning and we're still growing and setting new goals, but you earned the right, and it didn't happen overnight. And it was a consistent effort. It wasn't like you consistently plugged into a podcast. There was a lot more depth and profound, like pushing yourself and gleaning more and immersing and getting that, ingrained into you by getting in that environment. And 5 years, you guys. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. But
it wasn't just conferences, and it just, every single day I did something.
Listening to audios in your car.
Yeah, and meditating in my office every day and doing the work and studying. And what ended up being the thing that helped me move was every time I would hear I can't, or I would feel afraid of doing something, that's how I knew that I had to do it. Weird things, like I had our nieces teach me how to do a back bend in a cartwheel on the front lawn, because they were here and they were doing them, and they were asking me if I knew how to do them. And suddenly I got this like my stomach, like, no, I don't know how to do it. Don't ask me how to do it. And then I was like, oh, this is a sign. So I was like, hey, Kate, hey, Gwen, can you guys teach me how to do a cartwheel and a back bend? And I felt ridiculous and stupid. And I just knew that it's what I had to do, because everything inside of my body that was the deception that was telling me I can't, I had to prove it wrong. And that's what it takes,
The actions, that's developing the habits to do the right, efficient actions. And you never, like you said, you never know what they are. And they might not even seem like they relate to what you're wanting to accomplish, but they do.
The actions that are opposite of the deception, like to prove the deception wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So that's good stuff. Really good stuff. And in the book, so just to finish this up, we're 7 minutes over. What we're going to get into, because a lot of this, so what I just showed, that's mental and physical, right? Actions we're doing with our physical body, behaviors, but also there's an understanding. So it's both physical and spiritual, mental and physical. So we're going to get into, and maybe we'll pull up the PowerPoint where it shows the personal development versus the action-oriented things, the physical things. And it really does come, as we're pursuing our goals, we got to change the behavior with our thinking and what we're focused on and how we're feeling about what we're focused on. You can take control of that, and in everybody's case, there's going to have to be some course correction with that, because nobody learns how to do that in its entirety and in its completeness to start accomplishing and living a life by design. It has to be taught and learned. So we're going to get to where we learn how to focus. There's definitions and words and phrases behind that, like the law of assumption. The law of assumption means a lot to me. That phrase, or that principle entails a lot of stuff that I've internalized now, which then helps me to focus on things in a certain way, certain scientific way. So we're going to get into that. He's still making, there's an order to thing, and there's nothing by chance, and there's no coincidences. Everything happens by absolute order. It may seem chaotic, but that's because your mind and what you focus on is chaotic. Get that streamlined, and you start to get the results you want, just like the farmer gets the crop that he wants, the yield. So it's going to be exciting to continue to draw this out. We are in no hurry. And the things that we are talking about are leading into that. And it's like the pieces of the puzzle. Some of them's just a clear blue sky. It doesn't even look like it, means anything. But if that little piece wasn't there when the puzzle's gone, it's missing. Like you got to have that piece there, otherwise it's not complete. But it's just a blue sky. It has no color to it, as far as, what the picture is. But it is part of the picture. It's a blue sky. It's missing.
Necessary piece, yes.
So,
even if it looks boring.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. We'll see you guys on the next podcast. Bye, everyone.